She was the angelic voice behind hits like As Tears Go By, who transformed into a raspy, avant-garde singer-songwriter. Marianne Faithfull's 6-decade career has entwined her with icons like the Rolling Stones, while leading her down harrowing paths of addiction and homelessness before rising again. At 77, the 1960s legend now faces potential retirement as she struggles with lingering health issues from a near-fatal bout of COVID-19. Join Factsverse as we go behind the headlines to recount her dramatic story. Swinging Sixties Starlet. Marianne Faithfull's rise to fame in the mid-1960s was meteoric. In 1964, the shy 17-year-old was spotted at a Rolling Stones launch party by manager Andrew Loog Oldham, who saw star potential in the self-conscious yet angelic-looking blonde. Faithfull had a thoroughly upper-class upbringing, born in London in 1946 to Ava, an Austrian baroness, and Major Robert Glyn Faithfull, a British WW2 spy. But she gravitated towards coffee houses and the folk scene as a teenager, steeping herself in the music of Joan Baez and Bob Dylan. Oldham envisioned Faithfull as a virginal folk pop icon who could appeal to the emerging youth culture. Her first single, the Jagger-Richards-penned ballad As Tears Go By, cast her as a fresh-faced ingenue with a gentle, melancholic voice. Released in '64, it was a hit that rocketed the unknown Faithfull to stardom. Her 1965 self-titled debut album continued to showcase her as a folk-influenced chanteuse, singing delicately arranged pop tunes and covers. The same year, she married John Dunbar, an art gallery owner in the Rolling Stones' social circle, and gave birth to their son Nicholas in November. Even as domesticity beckoned, her career took off, as she embarked on a busy schedule of recording, concerts, and television appearances to promote her music. She and Dunbar socialized in London's hip elite circles, where she became acquainted with Mick Jagger. Drawn to his creative energy, she entered into a high-profile romance with the Stones frontman in 1966, leaving her husband. Faithfull later lamented that she jumped into marriage and motherhood too young, before she could truly find herself. Her affable image and relationship with Jagger made the doe-eyed 19-year-old a media sensation, an archetypal symbol of swinging London. She continued to release hit singles like This Little Bird and her cover of Summer Nights, as well as more introspective albums like No One Can Succeed Like Nobody Can and Go Away From My World. By marrying folk styles with Baroque pop orchestration, Faithfull strove to be seen as more than just a cookie-cutter pop starlet. Her immersion in the Stones' world opened doors into acting and theater. She appeared on stage in Chekhov's Three Sisters in 1967 and starred in the films I'll Never Forget What's His Name and Girl on a Motorcycle in the late 60s. Yet she resented being viewed as a peripheral muse rather than a serious artist in her own right. By 1967, at 20 years old, Marianne Faithfull stood at the epicenter of hip youth culture and the avant-garde art scene. But her meteoric rise to it-girl status led to intense scrutiny. She withstood controversies like the notorious drug bust at Keith Richards' home. Despite struggling to break out of the good girl mold, Faithfull's ethereal beauty and waifish voice made her one of the leading icons of swinging London. Muse and member of the Stones' inner circle. Her relationship with Mick Jagger intensely magnified her celebrity status. As Jagger's girlfriend, she became embedded within the Rolling Stones' inner circle. While the Stones rocketed to greater fame and notoriety, Faithfull struggled to be regarded as anything more than a prized possession of Jagger. Yet her influence was more than superficial. She opened Jagger's eyes to literature like Mikhail Bulgakov's mystical Russian novel The Master and Margarita, part of which inspired his lyricism on the 1968 track Sympathy for the Devil. Jagger and Keith Richards presented her with the mournful 1964 ballad As Tears Go By, kickstarting her pop career. Over the years, she either inspired or co-wrote several of the band's songs, including Sister Morphine, which chillingly described her own battle with addiction. She also joined them in the studio, soaking in their creative process and developing her own musicality. But attempts to showcase her own artistry faced roadblocks, like when her record label shelved the risque Sister Morphine in 1969. She acted alongside Jagger in the lurid films Performance and Hamlet, yet was criticized as merely a prop to fuel voyeuristic interest. By 1969, her relationship with Jagger collapsed under the strain of scrutiny, substance abuse, and his affairs with other women. The low point was in February 1967 when Faithfull was present at the infamous drug bust at Keith Richards' country home along with Jagger and others. Clad only in a fur rug when police raided the home, her name made international headlines in connection to the scandal. She would come to represent the illicit excess of the time. Still, she later reflected that she matured tremendously through her involvement with the Stones. Downward spiral in the 70s. The end of the 60s marked a heartbreaking downward spiral for Marianne Faithfull. She lost custody of her son Nicholas to her ex-husband amidst concerns over her ability to care for the child while battling addiction. Homeless and penniless, she disappeared from the recording studio for years and faded from the spotlight. She descended into heroin addiction and lived intermittently on the streets of London throughout the early 70s. She took shelter in squats around Soho, relying on the kindness of strangers and drug addict acquaintances. She developed severe anorexia and her mental health unraveled. Friends tried enrolling her in an NHS drug treatment program, but Faithfull struggled to get sober. She tried some live performances, but these reflected her personal turmoil. A 1973 comeback show in Boston was a disaster. A worn-looking Faithfull was forgetting lyrics and breaking down on stage. Tabloids occasionally published lurid stories of Faithfull's downfall. The public saw her not as a professional musician, but as a tragic casualty of the excesses she once personified. Hitting bottom forced her to shed artifice and false images. The friends and strangers who comforted her through this dark period kindled her belief in the goodness of humanity. She rises up. Against all odds, Marianne Faithfull rose from the ashes in the late 70s to stage a remarkable comeback. With a voice ravaged by years of drug abuse, she reinvented herself as a punk-influenced singer-songwriter, finding critical acclaim and a renewed passion for her craft. Her 1979 record, Broken English, marked a fearless reemergence with its scathing lyrics addressing terrorism, addiction, and heartbreak. Paired with her newly husky, cigarette-weathered vocals, Faithfull channeled her bitterness and hard-won wisdom into cathartic sonic poetry. Though she continued to battle addiction in the 80s, she was creatively reborn. In the late 80s, she transitioned to the role of a jazz and blues interpreter. She collaborated with cutting-edge artists like producer Hal Wilner and rock experimenters like Nick Cave. No longer chasing pop stardom, she focused on artful excellence over commercial impact. Having endured addiction, homelessness, mental health struggles, and cancer in the public eye, her creative renaissance proved her grit and artistry. COVID battle and uncertain future. In early 2020, her life was endangered once more by COVID-19. Hospitalized for 3 weeks, the 74-year-old endured a close brush with death that left lasting health repercussions threatening her singing future. At her advanced age and with multiple underlying conditions, her survival was uncertain. Premature obituaries were drafted. Miraculously, she ultimately recovered, but the illness took a heavy toll. She continues to deal with extreme respiratory issues that necessitate oxygen support, along with persistent fatigue and memory loss. But amidst recovery, she found the strength to complete her latest album, a spoken word collaboration with Warren Ellis titled She Walks in Beauty. Now it's time to hear from you. What's the most intriguing part of Faithfull's story? Let us know in the comments section below.